Massive mobilizations are taking place throughout Argentina to commemorate the Day of Remembrance for Truth and Justice 49 years after the 1976 civil-military coup. Delegations from Russia and the United States are holding a meeting in Saudi Arabia to discuss a potential Ukraine ceasefire agreement. And the South Korean Constitutional Court dismissed the impeachment proceedings against Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, reinstating him as acting president. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Stay with us. On March 24th, under the slogan "Never Again," massive mobilizations are expected throughout Argentina to commemorate the Day of Remembrance for Truth and Justice 49 years after the 1976 civil-military coup. Human rights organizations will take to the streets of different parts of the country in which they will raise their voices for remembrance, truth and justice for the 30,000 people who disappeared during the civil-military dictatorship led by Jorge Rafael Videla. As every year, the citizens will also express their rejection to the systematic baby stealing plan carried out by the military and the establishment of the neoliberal model, which led to the closing of some 20,000 factories. During the day, the human rights movement will also denounce the denialist, repressive and adjustment policies implemented by the government of Javier Milei. Brazil's Supreme Court will hold a special session this Tuesday for a final review of evidence in the indictment of former President Jair Bolsonaro. Our correspondent Brian Meir has more.
On March 25th, the first panel of Brazil's Supreme Court, a body made up of 5 ministers, is going to conduct a formal review of the evidence in the indictments of former President Jair Bolsonaro and 7 of his associates, including his former defense minister and vice presidential running mate, General Walter Braga Neto. At this point, they'll decide whether to set trial dates and formally charge them for attempting to implement a military coup in January 2023.
The ministers of the first panel are going to analyze the following. Was there a crime? Is there what they call materiality in legal terminology? Are the facts presented by the Attorney General's office considered crimes? Yes? If they are considered crimes, they will analyze whether there are signs that the people indicted are the authors of these crimes. At this moment, they only need signs of guilt. They don't have to prove that they committed the crimes.
The formal review of evidence is the final procedural step in a long process full of legal checks and balances that began with a parliamentary inquiry in March 2023 and culminated on February 18, 2025, when the Attorney General indicted the former president and 32 of his cronies.
The Attorney General's indictment is based on both the evidence that was gathered by the federal police and on the bicameral parliamentary inquiry, and in all of these, all 3 investigations, Jair Bolsonaro appears as the leader of the coup attempt, and, together with him, General Braga Neto, General Heleno, and others make up what we can refer to as the command center of the coup.
Many analysts in Brazil and around the world are wondering what the repercussions will be if the Supreme Court rules to formally declare the former president as defendant in a criminal trial.
The battle for amnesty in Congress will probably intensify now. I don't believe there is enough political will for this to succeed. Congress won't approve this, but they're going to go through the motions, because their goal is to make a lot of noise. This can help right-wing extremism grow in Brazil, and this can enable and strengthen the candidacy of Jair Bolsonaro's successor, who is his son.
If the Supreme Court decides to move ahead with a trial and the former president is convicted, Jair Bolsonaro will be looking at up to 28 years behind bars. Brian Meir, teleSUR, Brasilia.
In Venezuela, as part of the Return to the Homeland plan, landed a plane that made a stopover in Honduras with 199 Venezuelan migrants that were deported from the United States. The repatriated migrants arrived in the country an hour after midnight and were received in the airport by Minister of Interior, Peace and Justice Diosdado Cabello. The government of Venezuela has increased its efforts to ensure the return of Venezuelan migrants who were victims of the Trump administration's immigration policies, especially those who were illegally sent to El Salvador. Let's recall that the Return to the Homeland was established by President Nicolás Maduro in 2018 as a humanitarian initiative to facilitate the return of Venezuelan migrants who had left the country deceived by the so-called American dream. In Haiti, social organizations denounced leaders' inaction in the face of the nation's multidimensional crisis. Organizations pointed out that society is adrift and qualified as alarming the worsening situation of the Caribbean country, entailing serious consequences for the population. These organizations also called on all sectors of the state to assume their responsibilities to give the nation a credible alternative and to no longer depend on external support. In this sense, they warned about the need to implement a new leadership capable of facing the situation of the country. And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. On Sunday, March 23rd, the presidential debate took place in Ecuador. During the event, the candidate for a Citizens' Revolution, Luisa González, and the candidate for National Democratic Action, Daniel Noboa, presented their proposals for the ballotage. The campaign began with a debate transmitted in national television between the current president and candidate for re-election, Daniel Noboa, and the candidate of the political party Citizens' Revolution, Luisa González. During the debate, that lasted approximately 2 hours, was centered on 5 thematic axes: education, health and social security, crime and safety, economics and employment, and governance. Next April 13th, the Ecuadorian people will elect between both a president the next 4 years. His intervention in the presidential debate, the candidate for National Democratic Action, Daniel Noboa, emphasized that by strengthening dollarization, the economy of Ecuadorians can be warranted.
Nosotros trabajaremos de forma integral para que cada miembro de la sociedad tenga lo justo, tenga la atención.
We will work in an integral way so that everyone in society has what is fair, so that everybody has the right to have first-level health care, to have the necessary income to be able to have medical care, to be able to transport themselves, and at the same time, to have the security that they so deserve. We have given order to the public finances, things that left U.S. in disarray. And now we have a system in which we have increased our international reserves. We have stabilized the balance of payments. We have strengthened dollarization. And in this way, by strengthening dollarization, we will be able to move forward and fulfill all our promises and give each and every Ecuadorian what they need. And dollarization is essential.
Presidential candidate Daniel Noboa affirmed that his family is part of the controversial Noboa Trading Company, which has been involved in several cases of drug trafficking.
No, no soy el dueño, pero sí está miembros de mi familia en esa empresa.
I am not the owner, but members of my family are members of this company. Noboa Trading has cooperated in each one of the cases, and this has been clarified before the public prosecutor's office that from there disassociates any official of Noboa Trading from any illicit act.
The candidate for the Citizens' Revolution Party assured that during her administration she will install security systems in the vicinity of schools in order to warrant protection against violence and thus recover education.
Casi el 90% de la infraestructura está
Almost 90% of the infrastructure is totally deteriorated. Here are the percentages, and that will be the responsibility of the government, of my government. We are not going to make our fathers and mothers who dream that their children will be educated pay for this. To fight crime, we are going to declare safe zones in educational areas with video surveillance cameras and permanent patrols, with a specific anonymous line to report cases of violence. This way we will recover education and our children and young people so that they do not continue to be prey to violence, death, and the abandonment of an absent state.
Candidate Luisa González also emphasized that in order to sustain the Social Security Institute, it is necessary to increase the number of members.
Única manera de sostener al IES es incrementar.
The only way to sustain the IES is to increase the number of affiliates, which in my government went from 1.5 million to 3 million. The next thing is that this government has reduced the number of affiliates by more than 28,000 in just 1 year. This is how we put our retirement pensions at risk. Next is employment, which is the only source of adequate employment to sustain the IES. 260,000 jobs were lost in 1 year of Daniel Noboa's administration, and that is where the IES is at risk.
On security issues, candidate Luisa González said she intends to strengthen the country's armed forces, combat illicit enrichment, and take control of ports and borders.
¿Qué vamos a hacer? Control. Tomar el control de los puertos, aeropuertos, fronteras y combatir el enriquecimiento ilícito.
What are we going to do? Control. Take control of the ports, airports, borders, and fight against illicit enrichment and, also, money laundering. Intelligence and technology, which, surprisingly, the intelligence units of the armed forces were dismantled and their budget has been taken away during this government. Strengthening of the armed forces and the national police with equipment, but we are also going to give them greater preparation, greater strengthening from training together with our neighboring governments, assistance with the United States, with the European Union, with whom we have already met, and work on equipping the 1,300 UPCs and UVCs that are still abandoned, and our police are looking for where to sleep and how to eat.
The former president of Brazil, Dilma Rousseff, was re-elected as head of the new development bank known as the BRICS Bank, a position that she holds since April 2023. During the China Development Forum 2025, she announced her re-election to head the new development bank founded in 2015 by the member nations of the BRICS group, initially comprising Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. For its part, the Brazilian government and the Brazilian Workers' Party congratulated Rousseff for heading another term at the head of the BRICS Bank. Rousseff's re-election, now for a 5-year term, was proposed by the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, after negotiations with the Brazilian leader and unanimously approved by the bank's board of directors. Talks on the ongoing negotiations between the United States and Russia for a possible deal on the Ukrainian conflict are progressing in Riyadh City, Saudi Arabia. The head of the Committee for International Affairs of the Upper House of the Russian Parliament, Grigory Karasin, advanced so. The leader further detailed that Moscow and Washington delegations had been tackling current issues, including the safety of not only energy facilities but also infrastructures and maritime security. Karasin highlighted that both the cessation of hostilities in the Black Sea and the resumption of the grain deal was at the top of today's agenda. In this regard, the Kremlin stated that a possible future agreement on Ukraine between the sides could be prolonged. We have a second show coming up, but before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage and much more. Follow our page and activate, of course, the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final show break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to From the South. The Palestinian Health Ministry registered over 61 deaths in the latest 24 hours as a result of the Israeli forces' endless shellings on the Gaza Strip. The health entity indicated that the resumption of the Zionist offensive had pushed the death toll up to over 46,000 and 110,000 others wounded in the enclave in 15 months. The Israeli regime had mounted raids and bombings on several areas of the south and north of the Gaza Strip at the crack on Monday, March 24th, including the Nasser hospital located in southern Khan Yunis. There, the medical staff denounced the Zionist aggression and demanded humanitarian intervention from the international community.
The men's surgery department was targeted by the Israeli occupation and destroyed entirely with guided missiles, as if the Israeli occupation wanted to put this system out of service and destroy this system because it is considered the last breath of the Palestinian people.
The Palestinian Center for Human Rights accused Israel of using the lack of water as a weapon to make the Gaza Strip inhospitable. The organization warned that the humanitarian disaster in the region threatens the lives of over 2 million people as they do not have access to basic supplies such as clean and safe water. In this sense, the organization informed that the water and wastewater treatment infrastructures had been severely affected due to the Israeli bombings. The entity further stressed that Tel Aviv's decision to cut off the electricity supply to a desalination plant in Gaza aggravated the humanitarian crisis. Meanwhile, the Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs denounced that these actions were part of the ethnic cleansing campaign to wipe Palestinians off the map. In South Korea, the Constitutional Court dismissed the impeachment proceedings against Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, reinstating him as acting president after President Yoon Suk-yeol was suspended for declaring martial law. This decision was reached with 5 votes in favor and 1 against by the members of the court, while 2 judges ruled that the motion against Han was invalid since 2/3 of the legislators did not approve it. The ruling came 3 months after the Korean parliament indicted the prime minister for his alleged role in President Yoon Suk-yeol's declaration of martial law on December 3rd, 2024, among other charges. After his reinstatement, Han stated that he would spare no effort to address the urgent matters following his return and express his positive assessment of the process and the Constitutional Court's decision. In South Korea, a series of forest fires caused the death of at least 4 firefighters and the evacuation of 600 people. The fire broke out last Friday in Sancheong County and, in addition to the fatalities, left 6 people injured, burned 16 houses, 2 factories, 9 warehouses and 2 temples. Over the weekend, the flames spread to neighboring Hadong County due to the strong dry winds in the area. In this regard, the authorities deployed 36 helicopters to assist from the air in the work of containing the flames, as well as to provide the necessary medical assistance. Meanwhile, in Japan, forest fires have also affected 2 areas in the western part of the country, damaging several houses and forcing thousands of residents to evacuate. In the city of Iwahari, in the Ehime prefecture alone, large trees were ablaze on a hillside while a helicopter was seen dropping water on the fire. Meanwhile, in the western city of Okayama, the fire broke out on Sunday afternoon and has since damaged 5 houses. Authorities advised the evacuation of several hundred residents of the affected district. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net, and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.